Okay, so I've been waiting a couple of minutes. So everyone that's already joined or is still joining, it's still fine. They can join during the webinar. And regardless, the meeting is going to be recorded and made available for those that are registered. That being said, hi again to everyone. And to those that just joined in, hi. We'll be doing the Writeback product walkthrough and showcasing as well some of the new features available in Writeback 3.3. To everyone that doesn't know me yet, I'm Bruno. I typically provide support for Writeback and do these type of demonstrations. And for those that already know me, hi everyone again. It's nice seeing that you're all present here in this webinar. So today we'll do a little bit of a mix in terms of content. We'll be showcasing the new features for those that already know us, and for those of you that are new, we'll also be doing a more in-depth demonstration of what Writeback can do. So starting for those that already know Writeback and how useful it is in your dashboards, here are the main features that we introduced in Writeback 3.3. So the first one, it's the rich text input. It's now possible with Writeback to provide formatted text and longer text even directly on the dashboards, giving you possibility to do bullets, bolds, well, basically a rich text format right there on the Writeback form. And with this, it's also now possible as well to view that rich text directly on Tableau, because we created a viewer component that will let you present your rich text formats, your rich text inputs directly on the dashboard. We'll be seeing all of these in place today. Next, we have the data grid, which allows us to do submission in Writeback in a different way that we were able before, from what we were able before, allowing us as well to submit more data at the same time. That's why we consider this a more agile way to work with Writeback. And I think it's going to be really interesting to show this new one, as it enables some use cases that were previously not so ideal for these scenarios. So yeah, stick around for that one. And for the newcomers as well, we improve the trial experience by giving you the possibility to quickly set up Writeback in terms of login, and the configuration. I'll show some tooltips on what certain fields are supposed to do and so on. So we're always trying to make it more friendly and easier to get into Writeback. Right, so let's get started with this in terms of why Writeback is actually being more and more necessary for Tableau, because we always want to go beyond insights, in the sense that, yes, Tableau is really good at seeing the data and showing the data to the people. But sometimes we actually are required to provide some feedback. Would it be by replacing values, by doing a certain forecast, commenting, providing an annotation for a meeting, wherever it may be that requires some input, we hit a roadblock there on Tableau. And none of the alternatives are typically very good in the sense that we don't have a lot of governance, don't have a lot of security, auditing, and we always need a separate tool for that purpose. And that's why Writeback comes into place, because it allows us to do that straight from Tableau. This way we can keep just everything in the same application. We don't have to modify a workflow or jump out of and lose the context. We always work just simply inside Tableau, and that really gives us a lot of productivity and effectiveness. Now, Writeback in itself, it's an enterprise-grade product. That it's installed in your infrastructure. It's secure with your network rules, wherever it may be that you apply to your on-premise service and solutions. And because it is on-prem, you have complete control as well as the database that Writeback is going to store the information in, as Writeback will store all the data that you provide with it in your database. Besides this, Writeback also integrates with single sign-on. So if you're already using SAML, for example, on Tableau Server, you will be able to have your Writeback users also logging in via SAML, so everything is seamless. And in terms of governance, Writeback keeps all the history and all the actions that you already that the users take on the dashboard. So let's say that you want to do a monitoring dashboard or see how Writeback is being used across the company. It's easier for you to see that information as well. All of these is easily configured through the Writeback Manager, which is the tool similar to Tableau Services Manager, where you manage the certificates, authentication, and so on. With the Writeback Manager, we can set up the database connection, the certificate for Writeback, as well as the authentication system. Now, let's actually see what I'm talking about here and see Writeback in action directly on Tableau. So I'm going to be doing this on Tableau desktop, but I'm actually going to switch this into presenter mode, which simulates better what a typical end user would see on Tableau Server, for example, or Tableau Online, as Writeback can be used across any Tableau platform. So let's just get started with the most recent use case, the data grid. Jumping right onto the dashboard, I am presented with a regional view that includes my profit, sales, and the profit ratio for a given state from a list of countries. And that profit and sales can be adjusted with Writeback to adjust as well the profit ratio in the end. But basically, some calculations going on in the behind the scenes to do this. Now, to actually start using Writeback, I first have to log in. And part of the new trial experience, as you can see, username and password automatically filled in for those coming in for the first time with the trial settings, which in this case I'm using at the moment. This would be the part that typically can be connected with your single sign-on if you were using this on Tableau Server. But because I'm just using a simple trial example, I use username and password. Right, and right after I log in, I am presented with the Writeback data grid in this case. Now, the data grid is empty because I have to select something before actually starting to work with Writeback. In this case, I can select a bunch of states over here, and if there's data for any of them, it would show up in here. But because I don't have yet any data for these cities, let's just, for example, submit something here for Antwerp. To do so, I select that row, that mark, click on this icon over here to bring up the row on Writeback, and I can see exactly the values that come from the worksheets, and I can provide my new values accordingly. So let's provide a new profit value. So previously, let's say we have 3,000. Let's do this to actually 5,000, and let's adjust the sales as well to, let's say, 15,000. We say that for now this is a draft, and we can say that we are in a webinar. Now, when I submit this, Writeback simply writes these to the database and stores that information. But besides that, notice how my view actually changed right away with my new values and made the correct calculation now for the new profit ratio. So In fact, when I submit something with writeback, it's allowing me to submit new values, of course, but with those values, I'm also performing my calculations that were being done with my original source. And of course, all of this is being done without modifying my original data. Okay, everything is secure there, and I can still keep working on all of the cities that are left. So let's say that now I want to do all the other ones that I haven't yet submitted. So let's deselect that one. I click here, and writeback brings up all the selected marks to the view. And this is the main part of why the data grid is a more agile way to submit values with writeback, because it allows me to submit much more information at the same time, and it's just very similar to the previous scenarios, or where for those of you that already know writeback, we submitted in a form on a one-by-one basis. Over here, we can actually submit a lot more information at the same time. And I'm just going to submit some values over here at a little bit random. I'm not really doing the actual calculations at the moment by head. I'm just submitting some values. And let's do just this couple. I'm going to say all of them are draft. And I could even submit empty lines if I wanted to. If there's also some additional rows that I don't need to send to the database, I can just simply remove them from context. And when I actually do this, writeback is going to submit all of these rows to the database. These ones will have values, of course, and will be correctly updated in the view. So if I go here, and then, yeah, so these ones were already updated with the values that I provided. But these ones stay the same because I didn't submit the values, but the lines are still on the database. So if I want to modify or do some other action, like if I just want to modify these ones in particular that don't have anything yet, I can just do that, and writeback will know how to treat that information. And as you can see, all the previous configurations in terms of refreshing and providing new updates to the dashboard, everything is still working the same as before, just in a more agile way. Now, let's just jump right into what this looked like on a previous iteration of writeback, on the previous version. For those of you that haven't seen writeback yet, this is how it typically looks like by default. It's a standard form that you select the marks that you want on the worksheet. With the selected marks, it just simply reads them and provides you with the information that's exactly on the worksheet. And I'm able to provide updates. The thing is that when I provide an update in here, let's say that I want 5, 15, and 20, and these are my updated values. When I actually do this, it's going to apply the same quantity, profit, and sales across the selected products, across the 5 products that I've used. So once Tableau is done processing the refresh, we're going to see that. As you can see, there we go. So this means that for this use case, the actual better solution to update in multiple products at the same time would be the data grid. But earlier, that was just the only option that we actually had for writeback. That being said, it's still a very good example if we just need to do some adjustments very quickly without actually needing to submit a lot of information at the same time. It's a scenario that's also very useful for commenting, for example. In a scenario where I have a line-by-line basis need to analyze something, it's really great to actually put writeback in this scenario. So we have writeback loading up in here with the new contents. And we already see the rich text here, but I'll just get back to that in a second. So with the commenting scenario and the inline form and everything, it's really easy to just simply provide a comment across a lot of orders. So let's say, for example, let's find the country, for example, France here in first class, we have a lot of late orders that took some time to ship. So let's actually select all of them. We see that Writeback is reading that information as well. And I can provide a comment or an analysis on why I think these orders were late or why was some of that we need to address this. So let's just say that we need to understand what happened here. And let's say that it's an urgent priority because on the first class, nothing should be late. It should just straight up be on time. Now, once we submit this, previously, similarly to the update existing data case, everything gets updated at the same time right away. Now, here it actually makes sense because I want to see the comments on all of them at the same time. And I can just submit another comment if I need to, because let's say these two actually are with 3 days, and I actually already submitted with the urgent priority, but if I needed to change the priority, I could just simply change the priority for these two. And yeah, or if I just need to comment on a single one, so like let's say that these ones over here shipped on time, all good. So no need to actually do any action. Let's just decide, make it not applicable, and we submit that information right away. And we're just simply going with the new comments, and they show up on the view right away. Now, this is specifically for line by line comments or submitting data and providing values. That's what we've been seeing so far. Now, if I don't actually need to specify a mark or provide a comment on a given line, I can actually do that with Writeback as well. So up here, we have a different configuration of Writeback that instead of being an inline form like we've been seeing so far, it's set it as a pop-up. But the key thing is that it doesn't actually require me to select any mark before starting to submit data. In this scenario, Writeback is reading the information from this worksheet, but the information that it is reading, and I'll just click to open it, the information that it is reading comes from the filters. As you can see, I'm reading the quarter and the year. And this way, I know that because I'm using a filter dashboard, Writeback will actually know to just simply pick the active mark, which by the filters, it's Q3 of 2021. Now, I'm just able to provide any analysis that I want. And I can say that this quarter, we are doing great. And for example, I could modify the text and the colors and everything. So this is just a standard rich text input from now on. And you can, I'm sure you're familiar with these type of options. So when we do this, and I have a better example here, we can create titles, bullet points, and of course, modify the colors of the text and everything. Now, that's exactly why we also created the viewer component of Writeback. So when I submit something, rich text inputs have some encoding behind it, meaning that there's some tags that need to be read in order to display that information. Now, we can't really directly do that with Tableau or easily with just reading the text from the database. And by using the Writeback rich text viewer over here, you can exactly do that and show contextual information on a formatted manner directly on the dashboards. So I have a comment for Q3 of 2021. I also have a comment for Q4 of 2021. And the viewer updates accordingly to show that information, which is a great way to provide more insights directly on the dashboard. And of course, this comes already besides alongside writeback, sorry, in the sense that you don't actually need to get another extension or anything. It's just the same way that you configure the standard writeback forms and writeback inputs. You also configure the writeback viewer, giving you this capability to show this information directly on the dashboard. Of course, this can also occupy the space that you want on the dashboard. In here, we just have a small square, but if you need it to be a larger block of text, you can also do that because it's really up to you according to the space that you have on the dashboard. Now, lastly, but certainly not least, we have yet another example on how writeback can be useful in a scenario that actually is, I would say, the most complex one in terms of use cases, because it is very flexible and configurable at the same time. So over here, we call this the tabular view of writeback, where we can submit indicators, comments, or whatever it may be across a given dimension. In this scenario, what I am working on, it's a forecast over time. And I'm forecasting by country for in terms of sales, costs, and discounts. The forecast still has the typical form that we are accustomed to in writeback, where we can provide some context, a date, a comment, whatever it may be. But then the main input area, it's a table that allows us to place our indicators. And in this case, that would be these 3 lines. And other than that, we also can provide a status. We can provide some contextual information for reference values from the worksheet. So like the sum of profit, it's not editable exactly because we're reading it from the worksheet. And then the 12 columns that we see here are actually coming from the worksheet information itself. The month field and in its underlying data contains the 12 values, and writeback knows how to read that information and convert that into columns. Let's say that hypothetically I was working with the month field and it only had 6 values, then writeback would only create 6 columns corresponding to wherever values were in there. Now, in terms of functionality, it really just simplifies inputting in different ways, but where the data grid allows us to submit line by line in comparison alongside the data that's currently on the dashboard, the tabular view allows us to submit by a given dimension. So, and that's something that we couldn't do in the other scenarios, not so easily at least, because besides selecting the one mark in here, which in this case it's a country, Portugal, it's also reading 12 other marks to unfold into the columns, giving us a lot of flexibility in that way. Besides that, it also allows us to copy and paste from Excel. We know a lot of people that use this to migrate or start a technology development in the sense that they want to move out of Excel or spreadsheets to Tableau. And a good way to do that typically can be through the Tableau review as well, because it allows a lot of people to more easily accustom to writeback. So just like any other input, I can submit it and it goes to my database. Writeback, it's also now triggering the refresh on Tableau. And the change that I made was pretty small in the grand scheme of things, but our value is also updated over here on the dashboard. Now, we've been seeing this so far as a viewer perspective, someone that's actually going to interact with writeback and make the comments, make the value adjustments. and all of that. Now, from a creator perspective, or the dashboard designer, whoever is going to develop the dashboards, there's also additional information that we have on it. So let's, for example, take a look at the data grid. Before we actually reach the dashboard or reach the write-back input, this is the first step on setting it up. We log into write-back and the configuration comes up. In the configuration, it's where we define the worksheet that write-back is going to read the values from. But it's also, besides the worksheet, it's also where we define what values we actually want to read from the worksheet. As you can see here, for this example, I'm reading the country, the state/province, the profit, and the sales. Now, these values are not actually being considered as keys for a very simple reason in this scenario, because these are our keys for writeback, right? Because it's what identifies the data point that I'm inputting the data on. And if the value changes over here, I want to still be able to provide values and update them according to what's currently on the view. And this means that writeback will store the information that's on those values, and that's the stored field, but it won't use it as a filter. So even now, I think I changed this one over here. Writeback is going to read the 5,000, but it's not going to consider it as a key because I'm going to be able to see the value that I submitted earlier. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do that because it would be storing the profit as a key field, and we don't want that for these contexts. So we store that just for reference. Now, next, we also create the actual table name that writeback will have on the view, and this table will take exactly the name that we place here. Of course, formatted just so it doesn't contain spaces or special characters or anything like that. Next, we have all the necessary fields that we create for the form, or in the case of the data grid, as columns that will show up here. And these fields can vary from numbers, texts, dates, predefined fields like we saw with the dropdowns, as well as the new rich text input. As you can see, the rich text is just a simple new type in here, but it does gives us a lot of flexibility when submitting text fields. Besides the formatted text option, it's now also possible to submit much longer texts, up to 4,000 characters within the rich text field. And the new data grid option is also available here. And the dashboard settings that we've been seeing so far in terms of refresh, required of marks, the unique entries, and the inline form. So most of those forms that we saw so far are inline, with the exception of the rich text comment and the forecasting one. And the auto refresh we saw in pretty much all of them, where data gets refreshed when we submit something. Now, the mark required, we also saw the difference. We saw how it works in the commenting example. And lastly, the unique entries, it's the one that we see in place here, as well as the updating existing data. And that comes handy in scenarios where we work with values or status or something like that, where we always want to work with the latest iteration of that submission. So, for example, if I go to submit something for this particular product, I can't actually submit a new value. I can only modify what's already there. So if I change this to 300, what's actually going to happen is that writeback is going to disable the previous line, the previous entry, and submit a new one for the same product with the updated information. This way, we know in Tableau that we just have to read the most recent active entry on writeback, and it gives us a lot of flexibility for these scenarios. Otherwise, if I had two entries on writeback at the same time for the same product, right, by default, for example, Tableau would do a sum of the values. And instead of showing the most recent one, it would show the two added together. But let's actually see how easy it is to bring writeback to the dashboard. So over here, we have a map and some information on our categories and countries. And to bring writeback to the view, we'll just drag the extension object from here. Now, this extension object, then we link to our local installation of writeback. Again, because writeback is deployed on premises, so we're going to be using the T-Rex file that you use for that purpose. And once you bring that in, writeback goes logs you in, or in case I'm already logged in, so it comes up right away to the configuration screen. In the configuration screen, I can then select the worksheet I want to work with. And from the worksheet, I can select the field that I want to read. So in this case, I will just read the country for now, because that's I'm going to be I'm going to be working on a country level. And let's say that I want to provide some sales and profit values for the country. So I'll say that sales and profit for countries. And then I'll create the sales field, which is going to be a numeric. I'll also create a profit field. It's also numeric. And I can do a status, which is going to be a predefined with the draft option, final option, and cancel, for example. Then I can also create, if I needed to, a comment field to provide some context. Let's just leave it like that for now. Let's enable the data grid option, which automatically switches on the inline form, as data grid is only available inline. And for now, let's just say submit. At this point, writeback created a new table in my database with the country, sales, profit, and status columns. Now, to actually start working with it, we need to select something on the worksheet. In this case, let's select these three countries, add them with writeback, and provide, let's say, and then submit across all of these countries. Let's say these are all drafts. Okay, and then once we're done, we just submitted 3 new lines on our table. Just as simple as that, we have a configuration ready and new values on our database. Now, to actually see this information, I could do, for example, as we are doing here, we are using a tabular relationship to show the data crossed between our original source, which is an Excel sheet, and our writeback data, which is sitting in a PostgreSQL database. Alternatively, I could also create a new worksheet to show the data, or wherever it may be, according to your needs. Because from the moment that you insert data with writeback, you have all the capabilities that Tableau already provides you with. Just the only difference that you have writeback in there allow you to insert the values, the new values. So I should have my sales and profit for countries over here, which is a new table that I created. And I can drag it to the view, and I will see when I update it. Yeah, there we go. the values that I just submitted for the 3 countries that I selected. Now, if I want to do, I can just simply create a worksheet. Let's say that we have country there with profits and sales as the dimensions. We could even have the status as a shape or something, or a color, something like that, just to give us a more contextual representation of this. Now, I don't actually want this at the moment, but yeah. So this is just to explain to you that all the Tableau functionality that you already have in this in terms of setting up calculations, visualizations with your data and everything, all of that is still available to you, of course, because Brightback is just expanding that capability that you have with Tableau by allowing you to insert new values. So let's, for example, recap over here the Nordic countries. Again, similar to what we did before, we can just submit new values very quickly across all of them. And let's actually say, for example, these ones are draft as well. Say this one is final. And there we go. Data is on the database, but wait a minute. We didn't actually see the data coming in here. So that's because we haven't yet configured writeback to trigger a refresh on Tableau. That's also a great thing about configuring writebacks, that we can go back and do some modifications even after it's already done. So let's enable the auto refresh and actually select the sales and profit for countries data source. That's the one that we need to refresh for this purpose. So let's do yet another country. Let's go to Germany here and submit new values for Germany. And when we submit this time around, writeback is actually going to trigger a refresh of the data on Tableau. And there we go. Every data that we submitted so far is refreshed and shown directly over here on our dashboard. Of course, this is not a very elegant way to show the information. And that goes in line with what I said earlier, that you still have all the necessary, all the Tableau capabilities to show your data. So you can make the writeback data show alongside your data, like we're doing with the data grid example. You can just simply use it on calculations, that like we're doing on a forecast. You can show the comments alongside as well, like the commenting example. Now with the rich text viewer, you can have an additional layer of configuration and customization with these as well. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility because that's what Tableau offers, just expanded by the writeback capabilities. Now, everything that we saw so far, it's how typically, that's commonly what will be necessary for writeback on a dashboard and on a daily basis for the Tableau users. Now, before actually starting to use writeback, it is necessary to understand how it works. So writeback in itself, as I said earlier, is deployed on premises. It's going to be installed on a server inside your infrastructure. And that server is completely controlled by you. We won't have access to any of the resources. And writeback is also going to write to your own database. That's also a very important aspect on why writeback is an enterprise-grade solution. So all these components over here are going to be managed by you. Then, of course, writeback can write to the same database system that you're already using. We're just specifying here that it's a different database system because it will not overwrite or write to the same tables that you already have. It's always going to write. We typically even recommend to a different schema. But other than that, The processes to join the data pack are you can do it. You can do them with ETL systems or jobs that would move the data from one place to the other. Or if that's not a necessity, we can do it just like we did today on Tableau, where we join the data directly in the Tableau data sources. Then the typical workflow is that the users will interact through Tableau server or Tableau desktop with WriteBack. WriteBack will perform the actions that the user specify, write the information to the database, and then we read everything back on the on Tableau. Now, there's the WriteBack Manager up top here as well that's installed alongside WriteBack, and that's actually where we configure WriteBack before starting to use it. So setting up WriteBack gives us the possibility to configure our database connection, as well as the authentication system and manage the WriteBack license as well. So that's with the WriteBack Manager, which I'm opening right now. It's a tool that a web tool that we developed for that purpose. As you can see, I can define the database connection, a very simple setup, just like any typical database connection settings where we provide the server name and all that. Is where we define the certificate information for extensions to use, as extensions are required to run over SSL. It's where we define the authentication system. As you can see, in terms of authentication, all the supported methods. The most common ones that we see people using is SAML. It works great for integrating with Tableau Server Single Sign-On. One thing that I forgot to mention in the database, this release, I believe we had these last two database technologies. We're always working to provide support for more in the future. For example, I can say that support for Google BigQuery is coming up soon. And then, of course, we are expanding our support for technologies. Besides that, it's also possible to, as I mentioned, to manage the license, do some theme customization with WriteBack in terms of colors and the logo that's going to show up in the forms. And lastly, introduced in the last version, 3.2, there's the authorization module, which lets us import users to manage their roles on WriteBack. Currently, we have just these three roles for creators and submitters, which can be a little bit redundant in terms of configuring these in Tableau, but it's just a baseline for more capability and more governance in WriteBack for the future. Now, WriteBack is sold as a yearly license that includes all of the product, of course, and everything that comes with it, including upgrades and support from our side. We have a service desk in place and a very extensive documentation online. And all the pricing and information is available on our website, writeback48.com. On our website, you can also request a trial. It's very easy to do. Right on the front page, there's a button that lets you to start a trial. And in there, you can actually see as well some customers that we already have on board with WriteBack. These are some of those that allowed us to show their logos. Of course, there's much more that we can't really disclose at the moment, but we have been getting some great feedback from our customers across, I would say across the world, really. At this point, it's very good to see such a large customer base developing. And we're always looking forward to work with your use case and understand and see what new things you can actually do with WriteBack. Now, we've reached the end of the presentation, but we can actually start now with the Q&A from the webinar today. I see that we already have some questions in the chat. and we'll be opening up microphones and cameras for those of you that want to intervene. So before that intervention, I believe I'm going to start with the questions that we have in here. So from Jayakumar, will the old layout still be available? Yes, everything that Writeback introduced does not limit or disable the previous configurations. Everything is going to still be available. This is just an addition to the already existing scenarios. Okay, so if you do an upgrade and don't actually configure anything with the data grid or the rich text, you're not actually going to notice much in terms of the upgrade, because all of the previous features, we made sure that everything is going to be working as intended. Okay. Now from Donato, we see that he asked that, are you configuring using unique values? I think I accidentally answered that question during the demonstration. So I was using unique entries on the data grid example and on the use case where we update the existing values. So those two were using unique entries, yes. And I think I already did a quick explanation on that. Now from Sasha, how does Writeback interact with Tableau Online? Is there somehow a managed service or SaaS for Writeback? At the moment, we don't yet have a SaaS offer from Writeback, but you can still use Writeback on Tableau Online without any issues. The platform that Tableau is placed in doesn't really affect how Writeback is going to work, because you can use extensions across all the Tableau platforms, so be it Tableau Online, server, or desktop. The only requirement that you have is to have a server where you're going to have Writeback running on, and that server needs to be accessible by your users. So when you access Tableau on a dashboard, it's not Tableau that's accessing Writeback directly, but the user that's going to the dashboard, it's also going to Writeback. So it's like accessing a web page just contained on a Writeback, on a Tableau dashboard. So there's no real limitation there in when using Tableau Online. You can use it perfectly. And Writeback SaaS, it's something for the future, but not yet available. And thank you all for the questions so far. Keith is asking that if there's any discount for nonprofit organizations. I believe we do. It's something that we can confirm with our sales department and do. I'm sure they will follow up on that question after this session. But I believe we do that, yes. Jaya Kamar is asking me to elaborate on the rich text viewer. So yeah, I can definitely do that. Let me just go back to Tableau. And yeah, so the viewer, as you can see here, it's basically showing me the content that I have on my rich text field. Previously, I submit, let me just refresh this, make sure everything is up to date. All right, so previously I submitted this entry, and as you can see, exactly what I submitted is available in here on the dashboard. To achieve this, I have to configure Writeback on a different way. So I'll just bring in a new extension container and access local extensions, then access my local instance of Writeback. Now, to actually configure this, there's a new button in here called configuration type that we switch to the viewer mode and allows us to configure this viewer option. So we select the dataset that contains the rich text viewer, which in this case, I only have one available with rich text, which is the formatted shipment analysis. I select it, then I select the rich text field that I want to work with or show on the dashboard. And then I select the worksheet that contains the necessary fields, which in this case is the quarter and year. And I know that the shape summary has. If for some reason I was selecting a sheet that doesn't have the necessary fields, I would get this information. So I need to select one that matches the same search fields. Once I do that, Writeback loads in the dashboard with the rich text viewer, showing me the contents that I submitted. And just for the purpose of the demonstration, I will submit a new comment, new rich value. Let's make this larger like this. Let's make it a nice color. Okay, we apply this and submit. So this is now on Writeback as well. And if I were to refresh my Writeback, my rich text viewer, I'm gonna now see that I have two new and two entries for that quarter. And I can still see the previous one. I can see when it was submitted, and I can also see the new one and when it was submitted as well. So I think this would clarify how the viewer is applied and how we can see it on the dashboard. And let's we still have some time. I see someone with a raised hand. You can enable your microphone if you want to ask something, or just type it in the chat, whatever you prefer.
Sure. My name is Krishna, I'm part of an organization that's new to Writeback. In fact, you're seeing the product demo for the first time, and I have a few of my colleagues online with me. I have a couple of questions that are more product centric, and some that are more, you know, specific to the trial and how we go about doing that. I'll ask a colleague of mine, Keith, to maybe set up a follow up with you to discuss the account specific questions. But back to the product, and bear with me if I'm not understanding this correctly, but in terms of the ability for users to input data, um, is there, would there be a case where, if there are multiple users concurrently using the write back feature, and then there are these multiple edits happening, then how do you control that? Is it by access limitation, um, or is there another mechanism where you kind of control concurrent edits?
Okay, so thank you for your question, and it's a very good one. So Writeback by default, you're allowed to submit any number of entries that you want at the same time. So if there are multiple users submitting for the same country or for the same product or the same mark, all of their information is going to go to the database independent of who's using Writeback. And that's the default behavior, okay? So there's no real restriction on that. Now, if you want to control that, that's why we have also the unique entries functionality in place. That one, it's the one that I showed. I'm going to bring Tableau again. It's the one that I showed here on the update existing data example. If two people submit at the same time for the same product, what's going to happen is one of them, or if there's more than one, just the first one that to submit, it's actually going to get their value through. And the other ones are going to get an error saying that there's already an entry on that mark, and they will simply have to refresh the form or refresh Writeback to get access to that to that latest entry. And how it would work, similar to what we have here, is that I can modify what's already there, but I cannot insert a new entry. And that's what would happen for them. When they go here, they would see the most recent entry after getting the error.
Got it. Thank you. And then in terms of the underlying databases that you that the product supports, is there a limitation there? Because we are primarily a Microsoft SQL Server shop. So and we have MySQL instances as well. So are there any databases that you don't support, or?
Yeah, there are a few that we don't support. We don't support all the databases as Tableau does, but those that you mentioned are supported at the moment. So these are the currently supported ones right now.
Perfect, thank you. And then um, regarding the way you calculate the users, and I was looking at the formula that you have on your website. So if you were to kind of take a ballpark assumption in terms of users, and do that sort of price quote on your website, do we go based on the number of end users of Tableau who may end up utilizing this write back functionality, or is there another way to compute that?
So the writeback license is considered for all of those users that are actually going to interact with writeback. Would it be by creating datasets um, or submitting data? And those are the ones that are counted. So if you have 1,000 users on Tableau, but only 100 are going to use writeback, you only need to purchase the tier that matches the 100 users.
Got it.
I
Yeah.
don't know the tiers from the top of my head, but you can check that on our website under the pricing. It's available there.
Okay. Sounds good. Those are my questions. Thank you.
No problem. We have uh, someone else with a raised hand, I believe. Donato, you
Yeah, I
can go
just had a
ahead.
quick question tying
Sure.
back to the unique values point that I made earlier. So when setting up the dashboard, you had used a blended relationship. Are you, once you establish that blended relationship, are you just putting the is current filter on the worksheet set to 1 to get that latest value? And there was an example where you had like previous data that was coming from the data source, and then when you use the write back, it overwrites it. Is that just a calculated field that basically checks to see if the write back is null? And if it is, use the data source, and then if not, use the write back?
That's exactly what's happening. In the data source, we're using a relationship, and then the writeback table has a technical column that we use for the isActive purposes with the unique entries and everything. So which is this column over here. When something is modified, it finds the line as false and then inserts a new one with true. And regarding to the replacing of the values, yes, that's just a calculated field. Actually, 3 calculated fields, 1 for each column. That if there's no data for writeback, we show the original value from the data source. Otherwise, we show the value from the writeback table. Yeah.
Got it. Just wanted to confirm that.
Yep,
And then
definitely.
lastly, is it difficult to connect to a filter as a key?
Not quite actually. It's very straightforward. So the what we are using in this scenario, we have filters being the keys for writeback. So I I don't show the filter directly in the view, but I have them in the detail of the worksheet. And because they are
Hmm.
available in the detail, writeback then can be configured to show to read those values.
Got it. So you
So
just put it as a detail.
yeah, I put it in the detail, and then they show up as fields from the worksheet in here. From
Thank
yeah,
you.
no problem. We don't have any more questions at the moment. One thing that I must remind you, at the end of this webinar, or I think here in the chat, we're going to send you a form to fill out and give us some feedback, what you thought about the webinar. There we go. Thank you, Bianca. The form is now up there. And it would be we would really appreciate if you could spend a couple of minutes just to send us your feedback. We are at the time, but of course, if there's any more questions, we can still answer them, or you can send an email to us to our support contacts, all the emails that you already have available, either through our website or through the previous communications. All right, so I think that's everything. Thank you all for coming. It's really great to see such a large audience with interested in RightPick, and yeah, thank you for coming. We'll be in touch hopefully in the coming days, coming weeks, and if there's any questions, as I said, just feel free to reach back to us via email, service desk. You know how to reach us. And yeah, thank you so much for being present.